We're going to be talking about our journey today through hearing loss, starting with when we first noticed it and how we've progressed through and handled it. I have Jim McGrath, Jen Loudon, and Ralph Weingant here, who are also going to be sharing their experiences. I'm going to ask that questions be held until we're done speaking. There's scrap paper and pens on the tables. If you come up with a question, please write it down so you don't think later on, oh, I wanted to ask something, I forgot it. So you can keep track of things that way. So without any further ado, I'll ask Jim to come up and share his experiences.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I think it's still morning. Yep, it is. My name's Jim McGrath. I'm a techie here. And my journey through the hearing loss recovery pathway started many years ago, really. But I'm just going to limit my comments to what's been going on with me here at HALL. It began around April of 2023. My daughter, realizing my hearing difficulties were more than I thought, suggested I check out HLA. I came interested in joining tech support. While there, I learned hearing loss for my age, around 86 or so at that point, was very normal. I soon visited a local audiologist, and I'm now on the latest version of my brand of hearing aids. Kind of expensive, but you got to hear or you're going to be out of it. So our resident techie, Eric, taught me not to expect to hear like I did as a teenager, but to expect a big improvement over no hearing aids. And I thought, that's true. He's right again. Now remember, I've not heard of any miracles in hearing recovery, but maybe if I can just find a time machine, who knows? Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you, please remember to write down your questions. I'm going to ask Jen to come up next.
Hello again. I'm Jennifer Loudon. I'm the Assistant Director of the Chi Public Library, and I'm also a hearing aid wearer. My hearing loss journey started in 2020. I work a reference desk at the library, and I have a coworker who was at a nearby desk, and one day the phone was ringing and right in front of me, and I didn't hear it. And he kept looking over at me, and he finally said, "Are you going to answer that?" And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Your phone's ringing." And the phone was literally right in front of me, and I didn't hear it ringing. That was the first wake up call to realize that I might have some hearing issues. So I spoke with my primary care physician, who recommended I see an audiologist. So I was able, luckily, to get an appointment within a couple weeks of calling them. And I was very happy that the doctor was very accommodating. She walked me through and explained every test that was being done, because I honestly didn't know what to expect. My only experience with, hearing tests were in the nurse's office at schools, every year with the headphones and raise your hand. And, when she walked me into this room and there was this sound booth, it was a little intimidating. They did diagnose me with a mild to moderate hearing loss, and hearing aids were recommended. I would say when I went home that day, the first emotion I felt was grief. I had just turned 46 years old, I knew there was a stigma about wearing hearing aids. My next thought was, how bad is my hearing going to get? Uh, am I down the road going to end up completely deaf when I'm in my 80s, 70s, 80s? So there was some grief to that, which I found out later is a perfectly appropriate emotion to feel. It took some time to process. But once I went and actually got the hearing aids, got fitted and everything, I was amazed at how much better I could hear and things that I was missing. So, was very happy that I was able to hear on the phone much better than I could. Um, However, over the last 4 years, I have lost additional hearing. One of the things for my yearly hearing test that came out was I have what's called a cookie bite hearing loss. So my audiogram has a dip in the middle, which is apparently genetic. We weren't sure when I lost my hearing if it was due to genetics or whether I also was very, very sick in the fall of 2020. In September, I had probably one of the sickest times I've ever been in my life. So I don't know if maybe the virus that I had kind of pushed my hearing loss into more obvious ways, but over time it became apparent that I had this cookie bite hearing loss. Was told it was genetic, and that it only affects about 0.7 to 1% of people with hearing loss. On learning this, I have a sister who's 9 years younger than me, and I said, maybe you should get your hearing checked. And she kind of rolled her eyes at me as I'm the bossy big sister. Um, but she did. She got her hearing checked and she had a hearing loss. So she's 40 years old wearing hearing aids. I keep talking up HLAA to her, hoping that, she'll join a meeting as well at some point. How I found HLAA was just by accident. Magazines that come into the library that get processed were sitting outside of my office. And I happened to walk by one day and saw the HLAA newsletter sitting there ready to go into our reading room. And so I took it and read it on my lunch break and immediately joined within the next day. And through this, I have met some amazing people, and I've met Eric and Art and Lauren, who came and did a program about hearing loss for the public at my library. I've met Sue Miller, and when I had reached out about wanting to volunteer, Sue was very glad that I did. So my first thing was I joined the Education and Outreach Committee, and that's been great. There's a couple other librarians on it, and it's a great committee of people that are very passionate. We've done some pretty extraordinary things, I think. We managed to get some books into the Monroe County libraries. And we also just recently got some books on hearing loss, 7 different titles into the OWL library system, which is Ontario, Wayne, Wyoming, and Livingston counties. So we've formed a partnership with another library system in the state, which I think is pretty great. I would say my biggest takeaway from joining HLAA, aside of meeting people who are going through similar things, is the confidence to advocate for myself. I wasn't embarrassed so much about wearing hearing aids and didn't hide it, but it was just going to restaurants. I found going to restaurants, large family gatherings. My boyfriend and I like to, go to craft breweries, places that tended to be very loud or the acoustics were terrible. I started to realize the feeling of isolation as well when conversations are going on around me and I can't keep track of who's talking and what they're talking about. So I've gotten much better about advocating for myself, going into restaurants, asking to be seated away from music speakers or large groups of people sitting at a table. My boyfriend's even gotten better about noticing if a waitress is leading us to a table that's near something loud, he'll ask the waitress or the hostess, can we be seated somewhere else? Um, or not at a table in the middle of the restaurant. So I would say it's definitely given me confidence to advocate for myself. Um, and definitely within work. I still struggle with the telephone at work, and phone calls that would come in while I was on the information desk, there was often misunderstandings. I would repeat back spellings to people, and sometimes I'd have to ask 2 or 3 times, can you spell your name for me, or your phone number, or the title of the book? Um, excuse me. And it led to frustration, certainly on my end, but it did lead to a lot of frustration on the patron's end. And I got yelled at numerous times over the phone. Maybe you shouldn't be answering the phone. Why are you working in customer service if you can't hear? And even in person, there was some frustration. So I went and had a custom made pin made with my library's logo on it. And it says, I use hearing aids. Please speak clearly. I have another one that says, I wear hearing aids. Please be patient. And I wear them. In fact, I've got one on today on my work ID. So it's always there at eye level for patrons to see. Um, and it has, I think, helped with some of the frustration. If patrons come up and see that when they ask me questions, I notice they will slow down or speak more clearly. And it's avoided some uncomfortable situations with that. But that was probably my biggest takeaway, is just the confidence that I gained, in realizing that any emotions I feel are perfectly normal, whether it's frustration, isolation, grief, and that, I have to continue to advocate for myself because nobody else is going to necessarily do it for me, and not to be embarrassed to be asked to seat somewhere else, or and I no longer go to live music concerts anymore because I'm more cognizant of trying to protect what remaining hearing I have. So it's been an interesting ride. And I'm just so glad that I was able to join a great group of people and do this journey with you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. I'll now ask Ralph to come up and share his story.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Ralph Wiegand. I'm 75, nearly 76 years old. And, I've been coming. Yes. You want me to hold it more up here? All right. All right. Everybody here as best I can with those. Yeah, good. Okay. So I have what is in my chart. I have asymmetrical sensorineural hearing loss, which is very typical. But for me, it's my journey is probably very typical, and my hearing loss might be partly congenital. I didn't notice it in my early years, and my first knowledge that I might have a hearing loss was in 1968. I was 19 years old, and I went for my draft physical, and the doctor said, "Do you know that you have hearing loss in your right ear?" And I said, "No, I didn't. Never knew that." And he said, "Well, how bad is it?" And he said, "Not bad enough." So it didn't defer me. So for that time, and I have no knowledge of a particular event that would explain this early hearing loss. It might have been in my era, it might have been mumps, for example, and there was no vaccination for that. And so I went on without any great knowledge that I had hearing loss for quite a while. I was probably favoring my good ear, and my brain was compensating for that loss, so I didn't notice it as much. So anyway, it's kind of like your dominant eye, I guess. So over the decades, I was likely favoring my left ear, as I said. But maybe about 25, 30 years ago, prodding with my wife, Kathy, who's right there, she's in the journey with me. I went to the Al Siegel Center and they tested my hearing. And it didn't turn out that I needed hearing aids at that time. They did really notice that the right ear was significantly uh, poorer than my left ear. And they recommended that I go to get a scan to find out if I had a tumor or growth on there. And I had a CAT scan and they didn't find anything. And anyway, um, and so I was finding probably something that I noticed more than anything, that if I had my left ear on a pillow with my right ear exposed, I didn't hear anything. And that was really kind of a wake up call. And my primary care physician showed me a little test that he did and by just rubbing your fingers together right next to your ear, that's a very high frequency rasping sound. And I could really tell the difference there. And I did that over the few years and it seemed to get worse. Um, anyway, by the 2000s, I had memories of obviously seeking corner seats in restaurants, so I get the sound concentrated towards me, and also trying to get a center seat and any kind of long table. And I'm sure that my what quotient went up tremendously. Um, and driving, I was noticing that if I were the driver and passengers in the car, because I had the right ear didn't hear well, that was really significant. And if I took my eyes off the road, that became problematic over times. And probably about 2015, my wife Kathy was really noticing that I was not hearing well, and I was saying what all the time. And, my radio or TV would be very loud and we were having challenging times there. So, and if I was still attending some professional meetings in my profession and any kind of speaker that somebody, a question and answer periods, that would be very difficult for me. I wouldn't hear what a question was. I might hear the answer if somebody had a microphone. Anyway, so at 2018, I went to have my hearing aids hearing evaluated, and I was prescribed hearing aids. And I had a healthcare benefit with the hearing aids, and I got the audiogram, and I had mild to severe hearing at various points in my audiogram, and so they steered me towards a hearing aid that I would get the benefit from my Medicare, and that brought the price down significantly. But what I didn't know and wasn't explained to me was that that put me in a range of hearing aids. It was the true hearing benefit. And without having greater knowledge of hearing aids at that point, I was not it hadn't come to HLAA yet. I got a hearing aid, and I wouldn't know that it wasn't really the very best hearing aid that could be prescribed. And I have now learned from this wonderful group what questions to ask when you have a hearing aid prescribed or go to an audiologist. And I can say in my experience, I'm going to be changing audiologists because I really don't feel that I got the best information from uh, the audiologist that I went to. I have to do more homework, and I sort of naively approached it as if it were like the medical field, and I was going to get a full explanation. Like, for example, I didn't know anything about T coils at the time when I was prescribed. I don't have a T coil. I now have, with the second iteration of hearing aids, I now have a remote receiver for T coils that I can use. So I'm better off, but as time goes on, I'm going to get an improved hearing aid because the technology is just so fantastic as I've come along. Anyway, so now my hearing is improved. I don't say what as much. I have to make sure I have my hearing aids on. And one of the things about the first generation of hearing aids that I got, I replaced them because I had a failure with one and I didn't want to just pay the money to have it replaced and then have a chronologically not cohesive set. But my daughter plays the harp, and the music was the distortion of the music in the hearing aids was really terrible. And so now the next generation that I got, the music was greatly improved. So I'm very happy with that. So, I really rely on the Bluetooth technology a lot. And, you know, for telephone calls and all, if I'm now plugged into the Bluetooth, that really improves my ability to use the telephone. And now, being a member of HLAA and going to these hope sessions, my knowledge of how to address my hearing loss, which I'm assuming is going to get worse. It's not really gotten a lot worse from the 5 years that I've gotten tested through the audiologist, but I don't expect that to stay the same. Anyway, I just want to say we joined about a year and a half ago. We've been attending the meetings. My wife Kathy has always been with me, and that's been wonderful. And the people here are so willing to share their knowledge and experience. And I'm really glad. And one thing I'm really concerned about as I learn more about it, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be able to get the technology that is available in hearing aids. And I, you know, see the world around me and realize how pervasive hearing loss is. And this benefit, or the means to get get help, is probably limited to a small segment of the population. And it's just something I'm learning about, and you know, hope that we can do it. And this program that's going on in Zambia is just fantastic to learn about. So I'm really pleased for that. Anyway, so that's about my experience. It's been, you know, a one of discovery and some resolution, and I'm glad to share that with everybody. So I'll wrap up here. There you go, Peter.
Thank you, Ralph. Well, like Ralph, my journey started quite some time ago, not as far back as his. Mine started in the year 2000, when at work I picked up the phone to return a phone call to somebody and said, "Great, the phone lines are out." Because all I heard was, set the phone back down. Okay, now I'm going to have to go talk to the guy. I better get some paperwork to take with me to back it up in case he doesn't believe what I'm telling him. And while I'm doing that, I pick the phone up again and I hear a dial tone. Oh, good, it's working. Nope, it wasn't working. My left ear wasn't working, apparently. I thought, well, I got to sneeze or blow my nose or something, maybe it'll clear it up. It didn't. And a little while later, when I was whistling, I was perceiving two notes. And as a musician, I know that that was impossible to whistle two notes at once. So when I was back in my office, I called my doctor up, told him what was going on, and he had me go to ear, nose, and throat specialist because everything's connected. And if you have something sudden like that, there's a good chance that something else might be part of it. So I went, I not only got the full hearing checkup, including speech recognition and nerve and the visual and everything else. They also had me go for an MRI to make sure I didn't have a growth. And they said, "Well, what do we do about it?" And the guy said, "Well, at the moment, when it comes on sudden like this, sometimes it's a one-time thing. We're going to wait." Well, after about 2 years, I got about 95% of it back. So I thought, great, I don't have to worry about this for a while. Well, in 2012, I started to notice things sounding a little different again. And I wasn't getting the two notes when I whistled, but when I was playing my horn, I'm a low brass musician, things weren't quite sounding the same. I decided to go back and get another test done by the same group of specialists. And sure enough, my left ear was bad again. It would go out to about 400 hertz and then just start to drop off. And at that point, that's nowhere near being able to hear people talk. And I said, now, well, we're going to give you another MRI. It showed nothing. Because he said with an MRI, you could have something so small it doesn't show up. It's not, definitely not gonna show up on a CAT scan, but an MRI should catch it. Nope, nothing. So after another couple of years of it just getting worse and not any better, I went back again. And they said, well, we'll do one more complete test, another MRI, and they didn't find anything. I said, well, this is really starting to get to me now. They suggested maybe I should go to an audiologist. So I went to an audiologist, not knowing anything else. And the result was he wanted to, in 2015, wanted to sell me a set of $5,000 hearing aids. Well, I took them for the 45-day trial period, and I took them back and said, no, they didn't do anything for me. Of course, this gentleman didn't explain anything to me either. So not knowing any better, I said, no, I'm not, I feel like I'm going to be throwing $5,000 out the window. Forget it. I don't want these. Then I had somebody in the extended family get into one of these hearing aid groups. And they said, come on over. They were in the Buffalo area. We'll test you and, see if you need them and give you a pair to try. Well, I went over there and the hearing test consisted of sitting at the gentleman's desk and putting on the headphones. That was it. He said, oh, I want your wife to talk into this microphone too, so I can record her frequency because sometimes it's very selective. They allowed me to have those things for 6 months and they didn't do anything for me. I gave them back. I said, forget this. And my wife said, what are you going to do? I said, I honestly don't know. Well, in January of 2017, I saw a little ad in a local paper for this HLAA group, what they call the Hope Session, which was hearing other people's experience. And I said, well, I think I'll go. I was retired. I had the time. So I came to the first meeting. That was in February. In March, I knew enough. I went to an audiologist and had a full workup done. The hearing test, the nerves, the speech recognition and that. And now I knew what all these things were because they explained this is all the stuff that should happen at a regular test. And in March, I got my first hearing aid because the audiologist said, you don't need two. Your right ear is fine. Although as you get older, you may require one just because of aging, but your left ear definitely has problems. Showed the test to me, explained it to me. I overlaid her test on top of what I had gotten 3 years previous from the specialist, and they laid right on top of each other. So I felt, okay, I can trust this purging adjustment. And as I'm talking to her, she says, well, what do you like to do? And I said, well, I'm a low brass musician. Oh, what do you play? I said, euphonium. Oh, I played trombone. She turns around, she goes, I'm going to recommend this. And she had a whole small like parts cabinet behind her with hearing aids in it. And she pulls out a drawer and says, I'm going to suggest this one for you because I can put a music program on that hearing aid. And I said, a music program? She goes, well, you know how big the sound spectrum is as musicians. She goes, yeah, well, speech is a very small part of that. Well, music is the whole spectrum. And so I had this hearing aid in my left ear that when I turned on the music program, everything sounded fine musically. If I had that turned off, to myself, I sounded like crap. I had a bell that sat here, so here's where the sound came out, and it just didn't sound good. And I had been known in the group I was playing with at the time that when the director would say, we're going to tune, normally you tune to basses because that cuts through everything. Well, then he'd point to me and go, keep playing. And everybody else would be tuning to the note I was putting out. And when I asked how I could do that, I said, I can't explain it. I probably feel it more than I hear it. And they're going, yeah, but you're wearing a hearing aid. I go, well, that probably helps. And so I was amazed at what I had. And I also, in that hearing aid, had the T-coil program in, which helped tremendously when I was going to some auditoriums and that and church services, because, people would say, well, what does that do for you? Well, a T-coil, you're not hearing the reverb in a big room, the old, Saturday, what'd he say? What'd he say? You turn on the tea coil and you hear, and don't forget this Saturday is the parish picnic. Oh, okay. So I always encourage people, yes, you want a tea coil. However, last year I noticed that things were starting to sound a little scratchy, not quite right. Went for my annual thing. I was told that, oh, your right ear, you've passed the point of no return. You really need 2 hearing aids at this point in time. And I said, okay, fine. And explained, what I had on it and that. And she goes, well, I couldn't believe she looked at me. She goes, if money is no object. And I said, well, it's my hearing. I need to hear things. She goes, well, you can spend this much, but you got to spend more than that. But there's one about here that would do you. And it was recommended because it had the power requirement for what I needed to bring my hearing up to where it should be. And it's an Oticon hearing aid. They have 4 levels in this model. The first level being the most powerful, the second level a little less powerful, but it was more powerful than the third level, which wouldn't quite provide what I needed. So I get this hearing aid and it has a music program in there called My Music. It has the SYN program in there, which is speech and noise. If I turn that on specifically, it will take the person I'm facing and talking to and magically cut down the noise level of everything else around that. And I know that it works because Christmas time with 30 some extended family members, anything from toddlers on the floor on up, in an open developed house like this with hardly any walls, it gets loud. Well, I could actually be sitting there and having a conversation with somebody with not having to lean in and say, what was that again? Or, it makes it very easy to, I wouldn't say ignore, but not be distracted by other sounds around. And the only reason I knew to ask for things like this was because of being a member of HLAA. It taught me how to talk to my audiologist. It's like going to any doctor. You can't just walk to the doctor's office and say, I don't feel good. Yeah, what doesn't feel good? You have to have a good, intelligent conversation with your audiologist and ask questions until they get answered. If they're not getting answered, you go to another audiologist. If your doctor ignores you, you go to another doctor. It's not easy at times, but it's things you have to do. So I've had 2 hearing aids since late December. I'm still on my 45-day trial period, but I have a funny feeling I'm going to keep them. They recently updated their Bluetooth program. I was having problems connecting to my phone and was told by the audiologist, well, that brand of phone has the worst record for connecting to Bluetooth devices. Well, now I wake up in the morning, I don't have a dance to get my phone connected to my hearing aids. Although I really don't use them for receiving phone calls, it's just nice to have the control there. Sometimes in noisy environments, you want to turn things down and that'll happen. But I've also noticed with these 2 hearing aids, whereas when I wore one and was driving in the car, I usually knocked it down 3 notches to get rid of the road noise over there. These seem to go into like the speech and noise program and realize there's a lot of noise over there and they knock it back automatically. So that's a good reason for knowing how to approach this. And by staying with this group, I've stayed on top of the technology. My audiologist said, you're now one of my favorite patients again, because a lot of people come in for their first hearing aid. They don't know anything. And you got to talk to them at street level. They don't know the questions to ask. And there's so many things you can go through. An audiologist might not have the time to get into it extensively. Whereas I go in and ask a question and she goes, And she pauses for a minute before answering because she goes, you're asking me technical questions that I can't just blurt out and answer. I got to think about it for a second before I can answer you. And she goes, I so enjoy talking to people who know what they're talking about. So, and it's amazing the things that I hear now that I haven't heard for years. The snow melting off the roof into the gutters. I'm in a room one day, we got water dripping someplace. My wife goes, what? I says, we got another leak in the basement or something? And I go downstairs and there's nothing there. She goes, what's going on? I said, I'm sitting over there in the chair and I hear, she walks over there and she goes, that's the water dripping in the gutter. Well, I hadn't heard it for years. So it's like they say, when you get a set of hearing aids, you wear them all the time because your brain has to relearn what it hasn't heard in a long time. And there's a big difference in the noise of my cat's purring when she's decided that she needs to settle down and take a nap, right there. If the hearing aids aren't in, yeah, I can kind of tell she's purring. If the hearing aids are in, I can hear her purring. Even if I'm in the other room and I'm doing laundry, it used to be I had to keep walking back and forth to see if it had finished or not because I couldn't hear it filling up for the rinse cycle or that. Now I'm in the other room reading and all I got to do is pause for a second and go, it's still working. Okay. So it saves me steps sometimes. But I really appreciate everything I've learned. And that's why I keep coming back, because as hearing aids evolve in what they can do for you, you get to stay on top of it here. And hearing other people in our hope sessions, hearing other person's experience, you realize that, you either may be unique or all of a sudden there's 15 other people that had the same story as you have. And you learn how to handle that going through life. So I will ask now, are there questions? We have not mentioned names of anybody. Talk to us afterwards, because as a group, we don't endorse any single person, any practice or anything, but talk to us later off camera and we can let you know. That's right. So questions? Yes, Eric.
Just a quickie, I really appreciated listening to everybody's experience, but I just wanted to throw in the water and say there's a lot of technology out there. I've got the best there is because I do a lot of speaking for HLAA, and it in order to hear people ask questions and so forth, I need every bit of advantage I can get. One of the things I do though is I administer hearing tests twice a week at the Fairport Library, sometimes at the Demo Center. And in spite of having the best hearing aids, when I tested with my hearing aids in, instead of showing profound loss, I was only mild to moderate. I thought, gee, I expected everything to be mild or perfect, So I asked the audiologist why I didn't test perfectly. I thought maybe it needs an adjustment. She says, no. She says, you got profound hearing loss, and it's quite a miracle I got you up to mild to moderate. She says, but the difference is not in your ears, it's between your ears. And that's the limit on technology. They can deliver perfect sound, hearing apparatus, but your brain has to interpret it. And that can be a difference sometimes. She also has a coffee mug, by the way, that says, I can help your husband hear better, but I can't make him listen.
Any other
Peter,
questions? Yes.
Peter, this is Sue Miller on Zoom. May I ask a question?
Certainly.
Would you please ask Ralph how he actually heard about our chapter? I listened to every word he said, and I don't know how he actually heard about HLAA.
All right, here's Ralph.
Well, actually, I think Kathy discovered it, my wife, and promoted the idea that maybe this would be a good idea to come and join a group or at least participate. And that again was about a year ago, a year and a half ago, maybe. I think she was seeking a resolution for me. So that's probably it. Am I right, Kathy? Yeah, thank you.
But was it online or was it a newsletter that she saw or hearing about someone else? How did she know about it?
Okay, I'll let her speak for herself. Because I don't remember exactly the trajectory. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Years ago, I was friends with Arlene Metcalf, and I think her husband used to be the president.
Oh, John.
So from talking to them, I knew he was involved, so I knew there was a local chapter. So that's how I was familiar with it.
Ah,
Well,
John and
thank you.
Arlene Metcalf. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
Before you sit down, Kathy, I just got a question for the two of you. Who enjoys these new hearing aids more, Ralph or you?
Oh, I think I enjoy them too. Okay, thank you. Anyway, let's not go too far into that, please.
All right, Mary, you have a question?
I'm so grateful you found us.
Thank you.
I really am. And your stories are reminiscent of parts of my own journey. Caption Call is a free app. So when you get your phone calls, they're captioned incoming and outgoing. And the caption call has both sides of the conversation. So you can follow things along, particularly if they put you on hold for a time.
Correct.
The other thing is, and Dan is here at my side, have a telephone at home that's captioned that is acts like a landline, but plugged into your internet so that you have the convenience of a landline at home as well as your cell phone that's also captioned. And Dan is the one that installed it. My brother just got hearing aids, and I talked to him about the uh, caption telephone, and he got it too. So it's really can be a lifesaver. It certainly saves people you're talking to the aggravation of having to repeat something again and again because you didn't get it. Uh, and I have to say that, being a long-term hearing aid user, if I'm on the telephone and things aren't going well, I tell them that I have a hearing loss, that this is captioned, that there's a bit of a delay, and to be patient.
Yes.
But a lot of those things you learn over time.
Yes, and that's one thing that our demo center has is different items like the caption phone, so you can come in and see them. And the thing about having a caption phone is that's not something special you're paying for. Government pays for it. You've seen those commercials on television where the couple is sitting there, like, Grandma, I played baseball today. Well, what base? I played first base. And they go on and they talk about how, oh, it's not costing anything. The government pays for it, which a lot of times it's like, well, yeah, you spend $6,000 for this outfit and we'll pay for it. No, it's not like that. They're paying for it. And this is the type of thing you can learn from the group. It's like the translate programs that are available on your smartphone that it just picks up the voice and all of a sudden you're getting text, just like the big screen over there. That can be useful for people who haven't got hearing aids yet, and you show them that. So spreading the knowledge about this group, I've had a lot of relatives recently saying, well, I got to go in for a hearing test. I said, before you say yes to anything, and I'll send them a whole package of information, consumer's guide to buying hearing aids, over-the-counter hearing aids, and all this other, understanding the hearing loops and that. And I said, when are you going in for your test? Well, it's next month. I said, read all this stuff before you go in the door. and call me if you have any questions. I've always gotten a call back from them saying, I want to ask you about a couple things. They're not in this area. And they're just so thankful after they go in, because the one called me back and said, yeah, first thing the guy wanted to do was just start selling me hearing aids before answering any of my questions. Said, what did you do? She said, I finally just got up and walked out. I talked to some friends of mine and they go to different audiologists. And so I'm going to a different audiologist now. But the first thing I'm not gonna let them just carry on like this guy did. So spreading the word through this group is a very good way. And the thing is about the demo center, I've done some health fairs, and one of the most frustrating answers I get from, well, I can't afford that stuff. I'm not gonna bother. There's other stuff besides high-end hearing aids that will help you, especially in the home or with the phones.
Peter,
Question down there.
we have something in chat from Caroline Odio.
Yeah, I put a list in chat of the ones I know about. The one thing about InnoCaption that I just found out, and that's the cell phone captioning, is that they actually support three-way conversations. So I'm gonna change my cell phone captioning, I think, to InnoCaption. However, when you change like this, it's not for the faint of heart. Because you have to relearn a system, But anyway, because a lot of times when I'm on the phone talking to like a financial person and I want to, you know, have someone else come on the line, like say a spouse or something, a three-way conversation is pretty important.
Thank you very much for that. That's something I didn't know about. Something new. We'll have to look into that. Any other questions? Comments? Art?
I'm gonna step in front of the mic so people can see my lips that are on Zoom.
Can
Anyhow,
you hear me? Can you hear me ask a question? No? Hello?
hello.
No?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yes,
You can hear me.
yes, I can.
Okay. I just had something to add as far as cost. I'll try to be as brief as possible because I tend to talk a lot. Okay, I went to an audiologist and I had some insurance. She did the test. They gave me $3,000 hearing aids. I had those for about a year. I didn't use them. They were too big in my ear. They weren't the right kind. They didn't do anything for me. I just couldn't. One time, one of them fell right out of my ear onto the floor. I thought, well, this isn't fitting me right. Anyway, make a long story short, I decided that for a while, I just let it go. I thought, that's a lot of money. It cost me, my insurance paid part of it, but it still cost me several $100s, which was in my income was a lot of money. I went about a year with nothing. I just thought, well, forget it. I found out I'm an AARP member, AARP. They have a hearing test that you can do over your phone. Now, some people say, well, that's not really adequate. Well, I was mild to moderate hearing problem. That's what I came out to be after I took the test. Then I decided, okay, I don't know what style hearing aid I want. So I went online and at one of these cheaper places, Amazon, Temu, whatever, I ordered for like $10, one that goes behind your ear, a smaller one that goes in your ear. I ordered 3 or 4 different styles, $10 for this one, $15 for that one, and whatever. I had all these styles and I tried it on one ear. I tried it on the other ear. I did a lot of just fooling around with it. Decided that yes, I like the very small, tiny one that goes way in your ear with a little pin that sticks out. Went on Amazon, and they have over-the-counter ones in Amazon for $250, which is still a pretty good price. I think they're Audion, they started with an A, Audion. Anyway, I looked into it. I saw how they were related, went on Amazon, saw what people wrote about it. Yes, I love these hearing aids. I can hear wonderfully with them, blah, blah, blah. You look at all what the people say, and I ordered them. And I like them a lot. And I figured out myself that I only need it in one ear. Sometimes if I put both in, I can hear, but sometimes I feel like I'm closed in. I just feel like, so I found out that if I just use my left ear, which must be my bad ear, as I didn't know that could happen until today when he explained that. But anyway, as I said, I talk too much. I found out that for $250 for anyone who has low income, now maybe you're all well heeled and that's wonderful, but there are many people out there that I'm sure are not capable of paying thousands of dollars for something that may or may not work, which is what happened to me initially. And that was very discouraging initially. I almost just gave up on it. And as you can see, when I'm at home in my little lounge chair here, I don't wear hearing aids around the house. Maybe I should, but I don't. I wear earphones. I don't know. I have all these other little ways I do it, but I'm still mild to moderate so far. That may go up. As he said, it can increase as you get older. Anyway, I've talked enough. Thank you. I hope you all can hear me. I don't know. Am I just talking? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for nodding. Thank you for nodding. Okay.
Thank you for sharing that. That's good feedback because the over-the-counter hearing aid is designed for mild to moderate, and the intent was to get people in all income strata to be able to afford hearing aids because so many of us can't afford these high prices on the bigger hearing aids. However, the comment I wanted to make was I'm way beyond mild to moderate. I've been wearing hearing aids for about 40 years, and I'm probably on my fourth pair. And every time I get a new pair, I'm amazed at how much they have improved technology. And then these guys like Peter and Eric talk about this latest model Oticon put out, and my hearing aids from Oticon are only 3 years old, and I don't have these new features that really direct where the sound is coming from. And that is a major breakthrough. But what I'm trying to say is a lot of people say, well, if I can get fairly well satisfied for $4,000, why should I spend $6,000? But on one ear, I'm getting into the profound level, so I need a lot of power. And the way I justify it is I wear my hearing aids all day long. I have self-charging. I put them in the charger at night. I get up in the morning, put my hearing aids in. They go back in the charger when I go to bed. So the way I look at it, a couple of $1,000s extra. Well, a hearing aid's supposed to last like 5 years. So I'm spending about $1 a day more to have this power and all the features, which I use a lot of. So to me, it's worth it. But everybody's got to do those things. But we keep stressing wear the hearing aids all the time so your brain gets programmed to them. Because even when it gets programmed to them, you still got deficiency. You can't replace normal hearing. When I was young and was examined by the Air Force, they told me I had excellent hearing. They said, don't ever try to land an airplane because you'll crash it before you realize you're there at the ground because your depth perception is terrible, but your hearing's great. Well, by the time I was 55, I couldn't hear women in meetings at work. And that didn't work out. So I had to do something. And slowly over the years, 40 years, it catches up with you. So my only point is if you spend the money, use the things properly so your brain can get used to it. And then you're getting the value out of it.
One of the points she brought up was falling out over here. And that's something that people have to realize that a properly fitted hearing aid won't fall out of your ear. Now, when I just got these in December, and when the audiologist watched me put the one in my left ear, which I was used to doing all the time. She goes, you know, I'm going to give you a pack of the next size smaller just in case. And it took me less than a week to realize that I wanted that next size smaller cup on this hearing aid because the big one wouldn't quite go in. And I don't know if it's because I've worn one this year for so long that next size smaller, I put it in and it was almost like putting on that favorite pair of shoes. It just went, oh, it's in there perfect. Right here, well, I got to struggle a little bit because I'm not used to getting the arm naturally into that position and pushing. So yeah, it's like your eyes are different, your ears are different physically, size wise, you know, your feet can be a size different too. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that I didn't know about until I spoke with this audiologist was the design on the cup can be different ear to ear because this is my good ear. It's a very open ear cup, multiple holes in it to let the natural sound through. Because this one is so bad, it only has one hole in it because it can't process everything else coming in. And that the left ear, my hearing aid is doing most of the work. The right ear, it's helping a little where I really need it. So that's something else. I mean, if your hearing aids are comfortable, that means you go to bed at night, roll over and go, didn't take the hearing aids out. And the other thing about hearing aids, it's changed tremendously now. These aren't the water, quote unquote, they say waterproof ones that are good to like 1 meter if you get dunked. These are water resistant, which the number of times I stepped in the shower before, I'm like, oh, you know, throw them over on the counter. You forgot to take your hearing aid out. She goes, don't worry, you get caught in the rain. That won't have an effect on them. So that's something else nice that has happened. And the size, that really shocked me. This is like 2/3 the size of the ones that it replaced. And then yet it's got all those extra features in there. And it was recommended over the brand that I had before because she said the music program is different. And she explained it to me, you know, being a musician, I could understand what she was telling me and I'm going, oh, okay. Yep, that's much better. And the processing power in these things, thousands of times a second, they sample what's out there and have something like 12 million different programs. They can automatically switch in and out. I mean, the computer power in this hearing aid now is better than what went to the moon back in the 60s. Yes. Question over here. Now, I could have gotten a less expensive hearing aid had I not been able to afford it. But fortunately, I was.
I would ask you and the woman whose hearing aid fell out if your audiologist did a mold of your ear.
No, I did not require a mold. If you have, there are people who have custom molded earpieces because they really need that. Their
I would
ear
recommend
canal and
it.
that are shaped such that it's not an easy in and out type of thing.
Right.
And it's like where your glasses are positioned in the distance from your eye is the same thing with a hearing aid in your eardrum. When I go back, I will get the quote unquote real sound test where they put this miniature microphone in. And it's to test that the hearing aid is actually putting out what it's supposed to and actually measures pressure in your ear because that's how your eardrum works, moving back and forth with the sound pressure.
I would recommend it because I think one of the problems with the OTC hearing aids is that they're not fitted to your particular anatomy and your
Right,
ear. And
right. We do have a sheet
everybody's
back
little
there
different.
that talks about over-the-counter hearing aids. It's two-sided. It has the initial federal groups recommendations, and then we've actually expanded upon that on the backside. So that's available to pick up if anybody's looking for that. And there have been people recently who talked about the Apple iPods being used as OTC hearing aids. Now, there's been a whole bunch of reviews online, and what I've learned from that is like, well, if you want to wear these things all the time, buy 2 pair. The new ones have a bigger battery life, up to 6 hours. So if you're really going to use them, you really need to have them in all
Um,
the time.
she asked if, can you hear me? No,
Yes.
you can.
Yes.
She asked if I had it a thing. No, the audiologist I had didn't do that, but she did fit me, and I went back. After 2 or 3 months, they said come back for a checkup and everything, and I did. And they did some things to it because I had complained I couldn't hear well with it, and this and that. But then I went back out, and it didn't help. It didn't help me. Now the over-the-counter ones do come with a whole package of different size, the little end piece that you can change. So you can put a little tiny one on, medium, huge. It depends on what's comfortable. You can try different ones. You just pop it on and off. Also, the ones I have, they clean themselves automatically when they're charging, while they're charging. They're not battery operated. You just put them in there at night, close the thing. They charge in the morning, they're all ready to go. They're just no problem. They clean themselves. I just pop them in my ear, and that's it. And they seem to work fine. So far I'm very happy with. And they were $250 the end. So it just was the experience I had initially wasn't that great with that audiologist, and I'm sure my insurance company was, fortunately paid a lot of it too. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do it anyway. And that's why if you do enough research on your own, you may be able to get an over-the-counter one that would work fine, just depending. So anyway, thank you for listening to all my
Thank you for bringing
experiences.
information out. We had another question back here.
Yeah, it's not so much a question as a comment. I have ear molds because my audiologist said my hearing loss is so severe that I need the molds rather than the buds. So that could be a factor. And I'm very happy.
All right. If there's no further questions, looks like we're in our wrap-up period. I would personally like to thank everybody who participated today, and those on Zoom. I mean, Zoom is a fantastic item. It spreads this information out to so many people who aren't located here or people who can't come here. We hold a lot of different meetings on Zoom, and this information is always in the newsletter. Thank you, Art.
Thank you, Peter and Jen and Ralph and Jim. Thanks for all your sharing. It's very interesting, and thanks to the person who was on Zoom. I'm sure I don't have your name, but that feedback on the audio and hearing aid is very helpful. Very helpful. If you look at the way technology develops, it's going to be very interesting in the next 5 to 10 years to see how this over-the-counter develops, because they are making a lot of progress. Anyhow, we got to shut this down because we're coming up to 1 o'clock. Remember that all these presentations are available on YouTube on our website, hearinglawsrochester.org. Go in and look for the videos section, and you'll find the presentation. And you'll find all the presentations for the last year or so. It's quite a bits out there.